So yesterday in your 8.1 activities, you did a little bit of discovery with the circle, parts of a circle, and how to approximate pi based on a couple measurements that you guys took and played with. I would like you to make sure that you know that this page is a good reference, and it's attached on your Google Classroom assignment. It talks about the parts of the circle. It breaks down the difference between the radius, which is halfway across the circle, that is from the center to the edge of the circle. That's the radius. And then you have the diameter, which remember is from one side of the circle to the other side of the circle through the center. So try to remember our circumference and the round table story. Luckily we read that before we were sent home from school. But you'll recall that Lady Di of Amateur has a reach across the center of the circle, and her sun radius was only halfway. So try to remember that. Radius is halfway across the circle, and diameter is all the way across the circle. And that is written in words down here, and also this is saying diameter is twice the radius. That's the algebra version of it. So one of the first things you're going to be asked to do in this section is to either find the radius or the diameter given one or the other. So in this case, they tell us the diameter of the circle is 20, and so we know that distance all the way across is 20 feet. Our job is to find the radius. So if all the way across the circle is 20 feet, if we're trying to find the radius, that is the distance halfway across the circle. So I'm going to go black to black here. And so if I know the diameter is 20, I know that the radius is half of that. So I'm going to divide it by 2, and the radius is 10 feet across the circle. Now we can go the other way around as well. If we are told that the radius is 7 meters, we want to find the diameter, which is all the way across. So if I know the radius is 7, I would double it to figure out all the way across the circle, which means that my diameter in this case is 14 meters. Remember from our circumference on the round table that the measurement circumference is the distance all the way around the circle. And so here you have the formula for finding the circumference of a circle. So how you can calculate this distance around the outside of a circle is you can take pi and multiply it by the diameter all the way across the circle, or since we know that radius is, since we know that diameter is twice the radius, you can also, if you know the radius of a circle, you can use this formula instead. And this is just saying radius times 2, which is the same as diameter, and then multiply by pi. So these are going to be important formulas for you for the next example and throughout your activity or assignment today. So here we are, finding circumference of circles. So this one says, find the circumference of the flying disc, referring to this guy. Taking the circle, finding the distance around the outside. Now they gave us this measurement halfway across, which means in this example, we know that the radius is 5. So going back to my formula, if I know the radius, then I can calculate the circumference by doing radius times pi times 2. So back to my example, I'm going to do circumference is 2 times pi times my radius. That's the formula I'm going to use. Now here they tell us to use this decimal approximation for pi. So I'm going to go, this is skipping, 2 times, and I'm going to use 3.14 for my approximation for pi. And then I'm going to multiply by my radius, which is 5. So I'm going to do 2 times 3.14 times 5. 2 times 3.14 times 5. Did I already do it? Yep, and so I can see in that calculation bar, 2 times 3.14 times 5 is 31.4. So here's my answer. 31.4 inches. We're going to do the same thing on part B. Only a couple things are changing. Now they want us to use this fraction approximation for pi rather than 3.14. We can also use 22/7. And also, over here in this picture, we're not given the radius this time. We are given the distance all the way across the watch face, which means that we know the diameter is 28 millimeters. So we are going to use, now going back to our circumference, if I know the diameter, then I can just take the diameter and multiply it by pi. So the diameter is 28. I'm going to use this formula. Circumference is pi times diameter, and I know that my diameter is 28, and I know that I am supposed to use the fraction approximation for pi. So I'm going to replace pi with 22/7, and I'm going to replace the diameter with 28. So times 28. Now we're faced with this multiplying fractions situation, which I know everybody loves, but don't freak out, because look, we're going to put that over 1, and then I have the 7 and the 28, which I know I can divide both of those by 7. So if I have 7 divided by 7, that's 1. 28 divided by 7 is 4, and now I can just multiply straight across. 22 times 4 is 88, and on the denominators, 1 times 1 is 1. So we get 88/1, or just 88, and remember your measurements, 88 millimeters. So, alright, I had to check this one out before leading you guys astray on this one. So this one's saying, here is a roll of caution tape, the circumference of which is currently 31.4 inches. And let's say somebody uses the caution tape and unrolls it and unrolls it and unrolls it, and then the circumference decreases by 10.5 inches. So if the circumference was 31.4, it's going to decrease by 10.5. We're going to subtract these to figure out what the circumference is now. So when we subtract these, let's see, we borrow from the 1, that's a 0, this becomes 14, minus 5 is 9, 0 minus 0 is 0, and then 3 minus 1 is 2. Line up your decimals. So our new circumference, after it's decreased, is now 20.9. Now the question is, what's the best estimate of the diameter after the decrease? So this is the circumference that we're going to be working with. And since we are being asked about the diameter, we're going to use the formula that is circumference is, man, I need to get a new stylus here, don't I? We're going to use circumference is pi times diameter. Dang, that's really bad. Oh gosh, let's try that again. Sorry, guys. We're going to use circumference is pi times diameter. There we go. Now, we know circumference is 20.9, and so underneath circumference here, I'm going to replace it with 20.9, its value. I'm going to use pi as an approximation as a decimal, which is 3.14. Dang. 3.14. And times diameter. Okay, now this is where it says we're estimating. Okay, so we are going to use our number sense. Well, I know 20.9 is really close to 21. And I know that 3.14 is pretty darn close to 3. And if I were going to approximate, it seems to me I would use those numbers because these are divisible by each other. Well, 21 is divisible by 3. And so this is saying 3 times the diameter is 21. Work backwards and say, well, divide both sides by 3 to figure out what your diameter is. So 21 divided by 3 is 7. So it seems to me like a good approximation there for your diameter, assuming this step of estimating, rounding appropriately, gives us 7. Okay, one more example. Now this one's talking about the perimeter of a semicircle. Now perimeter and circumference are the same thing. It's just that circumference is the perimeter of the circular piece, and perimeter we refer to for straight edges. And so we are going to do two things here. We are going to find the circumference of what would be a circle, and then we're going to cut it in half because we only want this top half. But not only that, but we need to consider it's not just half of the circle, it's also adding this 6 meters to the bottom of it. So this blue piece, that's our diameter, which means we're going to use circumference is pi times diameter. So I'm going to calculate the circumference by doing 3.14, that's pi, times the length of my diameter, which you can see is 6. Okay, so I'm going to go 3.14 times 6, 18.84. So here, my circumference is, and I'm going to do this in red because I'm working for this. I'm going to go, what did I say? 18.84. 18.84. Now that's the circumference of the whole thing. But I only want half of that because I just want the top half. So I go by 2, 9.42. So I go here and I say half of it, half of the circumference is 9.42, and that's this. So we're going to go 9.42 is that red piece. Now they want the perimeter, which means they want this top piece and this bottom piece here. So I'm going to take this top piece, which is 9.42. I'm going to do that in red and keep my color scheme. So the half of the circumference plus the straight edge on the bottom, that's 6, which we're going to treat as 6.00. And for the sake of time, no, I can do this. What am I saying? This is 15.42 meters. All right, that's all I have for you. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, please.